Hello, and welcome to mentorDINO. I'm your host, Katelyn. I am an architect and founder of mentorDINO. I firmly believe that architecture, engineering, and construction professionals can achieve true success by embracing human skills as their guiding principle. So each week, I interview amazing professionals in and around the AEC industry as a way to share stories, inspiration, and advice for others finding their own unique career path. Thank you to all of our current subscribers, and if you're new, we'd love to have you join our community. So if you like this episode, please do me a favor and hit subscribe, like, or leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support them on their own career journey. So let's dive in. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome, everyone, to the mentorDINO podcast. I would like to welcome Sean Sheffler, Senior Associate Architect at LGA Partners and the 2024 AIA Pittsburgh President, obviously here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Sean, for taking the time to speak with me today.
No problem. No problem. Thanks for having me.
And so I always start out with my loaded question. Do you mind introducing yourself to my audience and letting them know a little bit about your experience and your journey so far in your career?
Sure. Like you said, my name is Sean Sheffler, and I'm a senior associate with LGA Partners. We have our main office is in Pittsburgh, and we have a few satellite offices in Ohio, New York. I'm also the president of AIA Pittsburgh, as you noted. I'm a graduate of Penn State University with a Bachelor of Architecture. I'm a licensed architect in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I also am an adjunct professor at Roche University, located in Pittsburgh's North Hills. I teach in their interior architecture and design program.
Nice. And you're sitting in your new office gigs.
That's
correct. Because you guys just moved.
Yes. We relocated our office from Pittsburgh's uptown neighborhood to the downtown area, the Golden Triangle. Our office is in Gateway number 4, 15th floor. We occupy the entire floor of that entire floor of the building. And we moved the first week of February. So we've really been here just shy of 2 months now.
Yeah. The new car smell.
Yes. The shrink wrap is still on, as they say. So.
And so throughout your architecture career, what kind of project types did you work on?
I consider myself to be a generalist, and which means that I've worked on pretty much everything. I often tell people it's easier to tell you what I have not done versus what I have done. I have never worked on a prison. And I've never worked, actually, no, that's not even true. I think the only project type at this point in my career that I have not worked on is a prison. I have worked on pretty much every other major project type that you can think of. When I started my career, I was working in high-end residential, shifted into the commercial studio at that firm, and worked on some healthcare and some higher education projects. Moved to another firm and spent most of my time there working on higher ed projects, particularly student unions and athletic centers. And since then, I came to LGA and helped build their education market, and am now the senior associate in charge of education here at LGA. Formerly the studio leader, I delegated that role to another one of my colleagues here in the office. But I work primarily on education projects, primarily higher ed, but also a little bit of private K through 12 and charter schools.
As you move from firm to firm,
yeah,
what was your driver for moving on to have those different experiences since you more do a full gamut of project types?
Yeah, so if I'm answering honestly, the first move that I made career-wise was to try to get myself on higher ground, firmer footing. The firm that I was working in was the status of that firm was a little tenuous at the time. I didn't want to be left out in the cold if the firm would have laid me off or closed its doors. So I decided to look elsewhere for more stable employment. And then when I decided to move on from that firm, it was to try something new, to take a little bit of a risk on a smaller company that was looking to grow looking to bring on architects with a certain level of experience and a certain expertise, if you will. I hate the word expertise because it implies that you're an expert at something, but
And we're never
someone,
experts.
right, someone who had spent maybe a significant amount of time working in one particular market that they were trying to help grow. So that's when I came to LGA and helped them build their current education market, which we did a handful of projects prior to my coming on board, and we've expanded our portfolio since I've been here, which I'm not going to say it's because of me, but I helped. I helped. I
Part of
contributed.
the team building
Yeah.
process. It takes
Yeah.
a team, so you're
Yes.
part of the team.
Yes. Thank you.
And do you have a favorite project type since you've done so much?
Favorite project type?
Well, I figured if I said favorite project, that'd be too
Yeah.
hard.
Favorite project is, it's hard, right? Because you find something that you like in all of them. Project type, I have been very privileged to do a handful of libraries, and I found those to be very rewarding, very fulfilling. They are spaces that tend to be respected by the patrons, whether they're students or community members. And I found that to be very, very, very rewarding work. Also, I have found similar reward in athletics facilities. I tend to prefer the library over the athletic facility myself, my personal preference, but it doesn't mean that I don't respect what an athlete brings to the space that they occupy and how the space can bring out the best in them. So I also really appreciate the rigor of athletics. A basketball court is a set size, a volleyball court is a set size, and there's a certain um, exactitude to that I think really lends itself to the architecture. And
Yeah,
I've always been fascinated by that.
because you kind of just need, it's not even like dimensions, it's like a volume of
Hmm.
space that you have to
Correct.
make sure it works. Because I remember
Correct.
having to do like a racquetball court, and it's like, it's not width wise,
Mhm.
but height wise, it's double. So it's like, oh, okay, you almost need like mini atriums depending on where they are and how it's placed. But
I also, you can't argue it either, right?
no,
Like,
it is what it is.
yeah, can this conference room be 6 inches narrower? Yeah, it can. Can this squash court be 6 inches narrower? No, no, it can't. It has to be exactly the size that we show. So,
Yeah.
um,
Do you have any advice for professionals that are finding themselves also a generalist and
mm,
how to navigate a career? I find a lot of leadership professionals in architecture that want you to specialize, want you to focus in.
mhm.
And so, do you have any advice being a more generalist for those that want to go that path?
Well, I think that I don't think that there's anything wrong with specializing. And I do think that
Mm-hmm.
that's how certain people will advance in their careers. And I think to a certain extent, I have also specialized, right? I am in charge of a very specific studio here, and I do a very specific type of work. But I think one of the reasons why I appreciate the education landscape in particular is it allows me to be a specialist and a generalist at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A college campus, for example, has a is like a little microcosm of project types. Because I work in education, I could be doing a library, I could be doing an athletics facility, I could be doing a dormitory, I could be doing a classroom or a laboratory. So it allows me to dabble in different things while still having that specialty, and I really appreciated that. Uh, we've been having a philosophical debate here at the office also about what is the most important role on the project. Is it the project manager, or is it the project architect, or the equivalent? And uh, the the argument is that the project manager might be the one uh, maybe setting the budget and setting the schedule, but it's the project architect that makes the project function and makes the project work. And in that respect, being a generalist allows you to be put on different teams, allows you to come to a team with a diverse set of skills,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the project might require of you. Um, I think it's made me and my career a little bit more nimble. I don't approach things with a certain mindset. I approach things with a more broad-based knowledge that I think helps me integrate myself with the project scope, the project team, the consultants, etc. So,
Yeah, no, that's great advice
mhm,
because all of my education experience within architecture has been pretty diverse. It's
mhm,
like my last education project was almost like a mini hospital
mhm,
and workplace and
mhm,
research. So it was like
right,
one project being almost three different project types
right,
is very unique. So,
right.
and that was fun and just challenging to get you to think differently depending on what
Mhm,
you were and what project types. So, yeah. Um, Shifting gears a little bit more
mhm.
onto mentorship because I know
Sure.
that is one of your passions.
Yes, it
How
always has
is
been.
how has mentorship played a role in your career development?
Uh, it's a great question, Caitlin, and I'm really glad I saw it on your list here. So when I started working, I graduated. I didn't mention this. I graduated in the year 2000, so I've been practicing architecture for 24 years now. When I graduated and started working, I was in a very large firm, um, and there was this, whether it was explicit or implicit, expectation that you either knew everything or you knew nothing, right? And there wasn't a lot of, in my opinion, time or patience for mentorship or for training or for just helping someone get from step one to step two.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know automatically right out of the gate what the project manager needed you to do, then you were seen more of a liability than you were anything else. And it's a very humbling thing because none of us, emerge from architecture school fully formed. And I also, it kind of struck a little bit of a chord with me. Um, Also, again, this is a large firm with a significant number of people coming in on a relatively consistent basis. So, not too long after I started, there was another crop of young people that started. And I realized looking at them, they didn't know anything more when they graduated and got hired than I did when I graduated and got hired. And if I could step in and maybe be the in betweener, I could be the
Mm-hmm.
person who um, maybe translated a little bit from the project manager to that new graduate architect, and also from the graduate architect to the project manager. Help them understand each other a little bit better and what the expectation was on both sides. Then I could help not only each individual but also the project. And what that translated to was mentorship. Really, I was trying to help but I was mentoring both up and down, helping staff at both levels understand the other. I became very fascinated with generational cohorts and what
Mm-hmm.
makes them tick and what makes them different from one another. I do think that's a little bit cliched, but there's a lot of truth to some of it. And um, but that was, became a little bit of a hobby or a passion project of mine to understand the traits of different generations. But really, it was just about helping people navigate their careers in an intelligent way and maybe helping them avoid some of the missteps that I might have made when I was in a similar position. The term that get used a lot is pay it forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I might have beaten my head off of a certain issue, certain problem, certain um, idiosyncrasy in the office, but that doesn't mean that you have to. If I can share a little bit of my experience with you, maybe make your path a little bit easier as a result, and then you in turn will maybe help the next person coming up and maybe make their path that much easier for them.
Yeah, and it's communication because there's so
Hmm.
much even that I forget that I didn't know out of
Hmm.
school. So
Yes.
I know when I talk to young professionals, I'm like, please let me know if you don't know something or if I accidentally speak in an
Yes.
acronym because sometimes you're
Hmm.
just flying so fast trying to go through a task
Hmm.
that you forget what people do or don't know. And I know when I started, I came in already knowing Revit,
Hmm.
and there's
Oh,
professionals coming in that don't even know the program. So it's like,
right.
oh, okay, I need to back up more
Hmm.
than what even I knew then because of trying to learn what somebody else has learned and where they are. But they may be more technology savvy in other areas. that I need to learn. So you can always learn from the next generation.
Right. I when I'm working with younger staff, I always tell them, uh, don't allow me to insult your intelligence. Right. If you know what I'm telling you, then feel free to cut me off. But I have to explain it. I have
Hmm.
to give you the landscape here, and but please don't think that I'm insulting you by expecting that you know nothing.
Yeah. But at least it's better than expecting them to know
Assuming that they
everything
know everything. Yes.
and then
Yes.
them it's trust building because
Hmm.
it's they need to be able to be have that trust in you to come and say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, and
Correct.
not feel embarrassed or anything like that.
Correct.
Do you have advice for the more senior staff in the office on mentoring?
Oh, my biggest advice, and I say this a lot, is and I think we've already touched on it a little bit, you have to remember where you were when you were in that position. What did you know and what did you not know? When did you feel empowered and when did you feel belittled
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying that anybody's perfect, right? Because we all have our difficult days and we all have our good days. But for the most part, it's about trying to build people up and trying to help people succeed and trying to make this profession a little bit better for all of us that practice in it. But there's a concession there too. The concession is it's got to go both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are responsible for your own career. You're responsible for your own career path and the decisions that you make along the way. I can help you understand a task. I can help you understand a problem. I can explain to you what that frazzled project manager was trying to say and probably didn't spend enough time explaining. But sooner or later, you've got to take responsibility for the task that you were given, and you've got to do that on your own to the best of your ability if you ever expect to uh, progress in your career.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's,
Mhm.
you're not spoon fed anymore. Like,
No.
when you go into the real world, it's a big forest or the big
Hmm.
ocean. You
Hmm.
can carve whatever path you want, and it's not here are the classes you're taking, or you have to do one physics, one math, and one whatever, and you pick from a small selection of things. It's an endless sea
Right.
that you got to take control of there, and nobody's going to do it for you.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
um, losing my train of thought on
Hmm.
the other question I had. Oh, it was over the years,
Hmm.
education in architecture changes,
Hmm.
as with the accreditation process.
Hmm.
Have you found that change in education over the years difficult for senior leaders to understand what types of skills and strengths that students are coming out with?
Yes and no. Yes, in that the students that we talk to, whether it's at a career fair, summer internships, potential graduate hires, uh, the educational landscape is a lot more holistic
Mm-hmm.
now than it was when I was in school and maybe when you were in school. Students are coming out with uh, passions for sustainability, passions for public advocacy, passions for um, being leaders in their communities. And because it's the academic landscape that's immersing them in that and giving them opportunities to hone those skills and develop those passions. Uh, and I think that's a very healthy thing because you and I both know there's more to this career than just pumping Revit or pumping CAD 40 hours a week.
Yep.
And but that is also a component of it, right? We have to produce projects, we have to produce documents, we have to manage the effort during construction. So there are some things that are absolute and universal, but um, I think where we struggle as a profession, as an industry, is engaging those students and engaging those passions that they have, and not just putting them behind a laptop with the current version of Revit and just letting them
Say go.
go for 40 hours a week. So again, there is a component to that, but there has to be an outlet for those passions that they have. Like if there's a sustainability committee in the office, that new graduates should be a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's an urban planning project in the office that involves some sort of community outreach, that student might be the person to help develop the questionnaire or lead the outreach effort. And just because they're fresh graduates does not mean that they can't contribute at a very high level. It's incumbent upon firm leadership to find a way to make them feel comfortable plugging in.
Yeah, and learning what their passions are. I've always
Hmm.
found if you are passionate on a particular project type or a particular type of client, if you can get those professionals on those projects, they're going to have so much more drive on that project than if you just throw them on something random.
Hmm.
And whether that's the full-time job for them or a side project, like you said, if it's just a quick survey, but they can be part of the team to help the team out and still feel
Hmm.
part, then it's important.
Hmm.
And sticking with the education track, but
Hmm.
shifting to your being an adjunct professor at La Roche.
Right.
So how did you get into fitting in teaching at La Roche University, and what do you
Hmm.
teach?
Um, well, I teach two classes at La Roche. I teach a very the spring semester class that I'm currently teaching right now has a very cumbersome name of computer graphics in interior design. I believe it used to be the CAD class when CAD was the new technology, and it is now the Revit class. So I spend my spring semester teaching Revit to a group of about 12 to 15 interior architecture and interior design students. And in the fall, I teach a class called Contract Documents, where we take a studio project that was completed the year prior and we develop a set of construction documents and specifications from that. And I enjoy both for different reasons. The Revit class is a little bit more technical, a little bit more nuts and bolts, a little bit easier to teach. Right, the contract documents class is where I get to share a little bit of my uh, experience and my perception as a industry professional. You should do this, but you should never do that.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing. Here's the why. Here's why we do that. Here's why we dimension. Here's not only here's how you dimension a plan, but here's why you dimension a plan this way. And it's there's more there's to pardon the expression, but there's more there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's more content and more experience that I can get to share as a result of teaching that class. But it's also a little bit more effort. It's 2 nights a week rather than one, so it's a little bit more time investment. I got involved in it because I was asked to fill in for a medical leave. The person teaching that class was taking a semester off to have, for some personal reasons, I was asked to fill in. Figured it was a low risk, low impact way of scratching a particular itch. I've always wanted to teach something, so here's a chance. And then it turned out that that person ended up, everything was fine medically, but he ended up retiring after that. And they said, "Well, would you like to stay on?" And that was 6 years ago, and here I am, still at it. Uh, the time investment is one thing. Part of what kept me on is I kind of looked at it as I already invested the time in developing the lesson plan, the lectures, the PowerPoint slides, all those other things. So to teach a second year was to just kind of repeat what I had done earlier, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
rehearsing the lines to a play and then just doing it 2 or 3 nights that week, right? I should say the first year that I taught was 2019. And when I erroneously thought that all I had to do was just do it all over again, that was the spring of 2020. And the whole world got thrown for a loop. So, I learned what asynchronous learning is. I learned how to use Zoom. It really changed the landscape tremendously and proved to me that I cannot rest on any laurels. So, yeah, fun. It was a very humbling experience. All I all I have to do is do it again, but everything changed. So,
Yeah. Then it's
right,
crap. Okay, how do
yeah,
I reframe all this to do it digitally?
right.
Now, do you teach in terms of the students? Are they getting the
Mhm.
Revit class before the construction documents? So it's like train and then do?
Yes, and that's the idea. Uh, they take the Revit class earlier. It was a sophomore level course. It's now a junior level course. The contract documents class is a senior level course. So,
Yeah, because then it'd be spring semester, junior year,
yeah,
fall, senior.
correct, correct. And so the group of students that I teach Revit to, I see them again um, later on in their academic career during their senior year while they're getting ready to graduate. Uh, and I've learned by doing. I had very high expectations the first year that I taught. Everybody's going to come back to me during their senior year, and they're all going to remember exactly what I taught them, and everybody's going to be Revit experts because how could you not with this level of instruction, right? And
They got the
and
awesome professor. How can they
right,
mess up?
right. And I've learned that lowering one's expectations can be a very healthy thing. I didn't want I I liked that idea of the content. I liked the idea of talking a little bit more about my experiences and digging a little bit deeper into the why of like why we document the way that we do. Because there is a way that we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do a certain thing a certain way, and ultimately it's to limit our liability, right? It's not just about what we communicate; it's what we don't communicate sometimes. So I would prefer to focus on that sort of thing and not reteach Revit a second time. But I've learned that that's a piece of it also. So I've balanced out my expectations a little bit more, and it's also helped the Revit class too. I know that I'm going to have to get into this again in when I teach contract documents. So maybe I'll ease off on teaching it during the Revit class because I know it's going to come up again, and that's when I
Mm-hmm.
really need you to know it. So we'll just table that for right now, and we'll worry about it again when you're a senior.
Yeah. And I find the biggest thing I try to teach young professionals with construction documents, since for the most part in studio, you're making design presentations. Yeah, you may have a floor plan and
Hmm.
elevations, but a presentation style, that communication is presenting to other architects.
Hmm.
Construction documents, we are just communicating to the contractor, and they
Hmm.
need to know what you're building and putting together. So I try to put them in those terms,
Hmm.
just that you're changing who you're talking to. You don't have to do a big fluffy design thing in the construction documents, but you may need an axon if it helps the contractor understand what you're looking at to
Correct.
build it. But
Correct.
that's the biggest tool I try to just ingrain into people is this is who is looking at the documents, not another architect judging it. You do want beautiful designs and different other things, but getting them to change their lens is usually the first step I try to do. But the construction documents class sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I know that was I on my Revit courses I try to teach more the why
Hmm.
behind it and
Hmm.
less on the like here's how you draw a wall.
Hmm.
Like it gets a little mundane, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and mostly I just want, particularly with the Revit class, I want them to not be afraid of the tool,
Mm-hmm.
afraid of the software. So I try to teach in a way uh, that allows them the freedom to experiment a little bit and say, "Hey, this tool does this," or I didn't break it. I didn't make a mistake. I didn't screw anything up." And there's no mistake that you can't undo a couple times,
Yeah.
or there's also no shame in closing without saving, right? I do that maybe once a week professionally. So, but the professionals that I work with on a daily basis, the ones that I think excel the most are the ones that are willing to try, that are not afraid of the software. The software is a tool that they use. It's not a impediment to their
Mm-hmm.
design process. It's not something that they're afraid of. Those are the ones that I think do the best in a professional setting, and I try to impart that comfort with the software in the class. It's not just
Yeah.
about draw this wall and then model this door and then place this room. It's about getting comfortable with this software that you're more than likely going to be using day in and day out once you
Yeah.
graduate.
And it's good that they're learning it too ahead of time.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
um do do you have any advice for other professionals looking to potentially work and teach?
Well, um,
It's time, it's effort, it's
yes, it comes down to
rewarding.
time management. Um, you asked about mentorship earlier, and it really, to me, it was like the next logical step in my evolution as a mentor, right? It was always like this informal grassroots thing, and now I'm going to like actually be given a class with a group of students and a syllabus that I had to write and an academic like a academic calendar that I have to maintain and a set of grades that I have to report to the registrar and it just formalized my role as a mentor
Mm-hmm.
in a more formal setting. Um, so what it's it's like anything though.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of time and effort. And there are days when, usually right around 4 o'clock, when I realize I've got to stop what I'm doing, shift gears, drive to campus, and teach a class. When I really am hating the fact that I'm doing it, and then I get to class, and I do appreciate the little bubble that the classroom represents. Like it's my 2.5, 3 hours of time that's away from the office, and I'm focused on the group of students that I'm with. Um, and then that makes me remember the why am I doing this. But if it's not something that you're passionate about, if it's not something that you have um, energy for, then the time is going to wear on you. So I'm not saying that everybody listening to this podcast should go out and teach,
It's
but
not for everybody.
no, it's not for everybody, but the things that you are passionate about, the things that you have the energy for, you make the time for them. You find the time for them, and if you weren't passionate about it, then you wouldn't be doing it. So that's what I can say about that.
Mm-hmm.
It is there is it's not just the time in the classroom, it's also the time spent preparing the lesson, following up afterward, uploading the recording, grading assignments, so it's not just that 3 hour bubble in the classroom. There is some homework that I have on my side that I've learned to manage and do a little bit more efficiently, but that's more time that's spent. So if I didn't like it, I wouldn't be doing it. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I'm blanking out on this saying, but it's like some like hard work that you don't like is stress. Hard work
Hmm.
that gives you energy is called passion.
Okay, I
It's
like that. I
I'll
like
find the
that.
actual quote,
Hmm.
but it's something like that, and I really enjoy it because it really helps me describe people if they get burned out or if they're not
Hmm.
liking something. It's like, well, you're putting a bunch of energy towards something you don't like or doesn't give you energy, so it's becoming stress, which is why you're calling it stress. But
Hmm.
that same kind of stress, when you have a passion for it, can be very energizing.
Hmm. No,
So,
I like that a lot. I like the differentiator.
yeah. But switching gears on something else you're doing,
Hmm.
let's jump over into the AIA. You have
Hmm.
been very involved over the
Yes, I
years, and I have
have.
lost track of everything and all the roles you have held.
Right.
Can you kind of explain what types of roles you've held along the way and how that's
Sure.
impacted your career?
Sure. I joined the AIA right after I got licensed, and let's asterisk that for a minute because we're going to come back to that. Um, and I immediately joined the Young Architects Forum here in Pittsburgh, and I didn't know what that meant or what that entailed, or I just thought maybe I was going to go to a meeting and maybe meet some new people. And I saw instantly a way that I could plug in. Um, they had a lot of energy and a lot of drive, but they needed people that could help them make some of these things a reality. Like we need somebody to help plan this after school event. We need somebody to help plan this review session for the exam. And I was more than willing to help them plan it because at the time I was a budding project manager and I had all this project management energy. And I'm like, I can manage this for you. Sure, I'll do that. And not long after, I became the chair of the Young Architects Forum, which was a very uh, visible thing, a very visible role for me to play, a stepping stone in my career, if you will. I translated from that into, I served on the communications committee. I chaired that committee also. I've served on the education committee, which is part of our continuing, how we develop continuing education here and in the chapter. Uh, while I was doing all that, I was also the state licensing advisor, volunteering for NCARB, the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, which I became aware of through my work at the Young Architects Forum and through my work trying to help young architects pass the licensing exam. That kind of led me to NCARB and led me to a 6 or 7 year stint as the state licensing advisor. And that exposed me to the AIA at the state level and then also the AIA at the national level. And nationally, I participated in the Young Architects Forum's 20-year anniversary summit. And then a year or two later, the Emerging Professionals Summit, which was held in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Right around that time was when my daughter was born. My son was born while I was the chair of the Young Architects Forum. My daughter was born a few years later. I took a little bit of a step back from the AIA because I was trying to raise my children. But then I got tapped to be the part of the board of directors of our Pittsburgh Architecture Foundation, which was being resurrected or reinstated, whatever R word you'd like to use there. And the initial program of that reinstated foundation was what we called the Leadership Institute for Emerging Professionals here in Pittsburgh. The inaugural class was in 2017. With a little bit of a hiatus due to COVID, which most people took, we have successfully completed 5 years of that program, trained just shy of 100 architects, designers, engineers, and other design professionals from the greater Pittsburgh region in effective adaptive leadership. The program is currently being retooled and revamped, and we hope to see that get launched again later this year. I've been in more of an advisory role as far as that's concerned.
It would be great to have that back again.
Yes,
I was
yes, we're
class
really.
2,
Yes, yes, you
so
were. You were class 2. Yes.
and that program alone, I think, I don't know if it would be I'm trying to come up with the right words. Like impact is not the right word. Like
Mm,
it pivoted my mindset and view on architecture. And I honestly think was one of the initial stepping stones of creating mentorDINO to begin with.
mm, mhm.
So it'd be great to have
Well,
that program on again. I got so many professionals locally I'd love to throw into it.
you are one example of many that has taken that experience and uh, parlayed it into something, right? You've done something with it because it awakened or amplified something in you and gave you a platform. It's based, as you know, but maybe some of your subscribers do not. It is based on the concept of citizen architect.
Mm-hmm.
I become more fond of the term citizen designer because it's a little bit more inclusive. But this idea that design professionals are the good guys, right? And we have this ability not just to design, but to act as leaders in our communities. And it gives the leadership traits, the leadership training that 100 design professionals have gained through the Leadership Institute has given them the opportunity and the tools and the skill set that they need to go out in their community and do great things. And this podcast and all your efforts toward mentorship is a perfect example of that. So
Yeah, and we've got
thank you for.
somebody who's a mayor now,
Yeah,
and
the mayor of Etna, current mayor of Etna is a Leadership Institute graduate. How about that?
and still an architect and
Mhm,
practicing. So
mhm.
you never know where things are going to take you when you jump
That's
into
right.
something.
That's right.
But what else beyond the Leadership Institute? Sorry to cut you
Oh,
off
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. So
I
I
know we
did
weren't
get
done.
tapped. Yeah, I know we're not done. I did get tapped to be on the board of directors for the AIA. I joined the board in 2016, 2017. The years tend to run together. I threw my hat in the ring to be the secretary for the board, which was a role that I was um, very happy to fulfill for about 3 years. And then the second vice president position came available. And you and I talked about this a little bit
Hmm.
prior to the interview, but uh, the way we do it here locally, and I think many of the other local components do it in a similar fashion, the leadership is not necessarily elected. The leadership is recruited and encouraged, is the word that I will use to step on board what I call the train, right? The second VP position becomes the first VP, and then the first VP becomes the president, and then the president becomes the president, the past president, excuse me. So by agreeing to be the second vice president of AIA Pittsburgh, you are agreeing to basically a 4-year commitment where you will continue to ascend in the leadership and ultimately 3 years in, which is where I am right now, become the president of the chapter. So that's a commitment. It's a time commitment. It's an emotional commitment. It's something that involves not only me but my family and my employer, because my employer had to be on board with the fact that there would be some time spent, maybe more than either one of us would care to admit, some time that's being spent in support of the AIA. Um, but thankfully, thankfully, every thankfully everyone has been very supportive, very appreciative, and very respectful of what that role means, what that title means, and it's been a very empowering, very affirming thing. I don't mind sharing with you that I struggled a lot making that decision 3 years ago because I knew where it would lead.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure if I could do it, right? I had some self doubt. I had some self confidence issues. I wasn't sure, even with the amount of involvement I've had in the AIA and the leadership opportunities that I've had and the visibility that I've had, I wasn't sure if I was going to be I hate to say it this way, a good president. Like, what if I can't lead the chapter the way other presidents did, right? And then I
Hmm.
realized very recently, that I'm not going to lead the chapter the way those other presidents did. I'm going to lead the chapter my way, and that subtle realization was a very empowering, very affirming thing for me. So. It I realize it's not just about what I've been doing, the role I've been filling for the chapter, what I've been doing for the institute. It's also what that has been doing for me in return. So very grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and you don't want to be like any of the past presidents. Like,
No.
we all have
Mm-mm.
our own fingerprints, and you need to leave
Mhm.
your own stamp on the AIA locally on that
Mhm.
next chapter.
Um, it's been a very interesting year also to be the president. This is our 125th anniversary year. We are retooling some of our major programming, not just in response to the anniversary, but also to try to make it a little bit more appealing to not only our membership, but also to the general public, and also hopefully make them a little bit more cost effective and therefore a little bit more profitable. So it's been a big year to be retooling both our Build Pittsburgh event, our continuing education conference in the spring, and also our Design Pittsburgh, our annual awards gala in the fall, which is going to be our uh, anniversary celebration. So Design Pittsburgh is going to look a lot more elaborate this year than it has in past years, and we're hoping to see as many people from our design industry and maybe some people from the general public join us for that event in early November.
Well, I think it's all just great timing because
Hmm.
of how you've focused your career on mentorship and helping others. You being the president during the
Hmm.
125th year, I think was just where you needed to be at the right time.
Yeah, I I am Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I would tend to agree. I said to someone the other day that me acting as the president of the organization during an anniversary year, and a pretty significant anniversary year, is a really unique intersection, like a Venn diagram of me being a great big AIA cheerleader, and a practicing architect and a nerd for all things Pittsburgh. That's
Mm-hmm.
where those three things intersect, is right where I live. And I just happen to have the opportunity to hold this position during this year. So I've been leaning into it as hard as I can.
Yeah. And what's been like the commitment growth as you've gone along the train? Is the
Hmm.
president like time commitment level just a big spike and it's a slow build up? How's that work?
Uh, I would say it's a slow buildup and then it's a spike.
Okay. That's what it sounded
Because,
like from how
yeah,
you were talking.
yeah. The second VP and the first VP we all have roles, right? In addition to other things, the second VP acts as our Build Pittsburgh chair, and our first VP acts as our Design Pittsburgh chair. But then, and you think that that's maybe getting you primed for the presidency, and it is. But then once you become the president, there's a whole other set of responsibilities that come with that. And it's also, like you said, you make you make it your own and you do what you will with it. But there's some visibility that comes
Mm-hmm.
with that. I obviously can't be at every event, but I try to be present and visible at as many as I can um, to promote my role in the AIA, but also to represent the institute. Presiding over our board meetings, helping to maintain and establish a balanced budget, making sure that we stay on that budget. Have said this a couple times too. I don't want to be the president that um, operates in an imbalanced budget or runs the institute into the ground or spends all of our money. Heaven forbid. There are checks and balances in place for that, by the way. But I am trying to be as financially responsible as I can. Um, Being a good steward for the AIA and what value the Institute brings to its members, and then also acting on a national level. Also, we did our advocacy event in late February, the Leadership Summit, where we met with our elected officials on Capitol Hill to lobby for the AIA's collective interests. And then national convention in June, where I will cast our chapter's votes for the national officer positions, which uh, I'm taking very seriously also. So, yeah, and then a whole host of other things that I'm probably forgetting, but yeah.
Well, I won't be the obnoxious person in the back cheering when you do it because I am going to national this year. So
Oh, great, wonderful. Well,
yeah,
then we'll have to hook up while we're there. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Um, what advice do you have for professionals looking to get involved in either the local or national AIA?
Hmm. Okay. I remember that asterisk from before when I said I
Go
didn't join
back
the AIA
to.
until I got licensed. Yeah, I
Mhm.
knew we were coming to this. So I did not join the AIA until I got licensed, and a large part of the reason was I didn't know what I would bring to the table. Uh, just some dumb kid. I don't even have a license. Like, what would I? Why would the AIA care what I think, or why would the AIA? What would I bring that would be interesting? And that turned out to be the most um, incorrect statement that I could have possibly made. The AIA is a volunteer driven organization. If we are successful at doing anything, it is because we have passionate volunteers that bring their time, their energy, their interest, and their skills to the table uh, on the behalf of whatever it is that we are trying to achieve at that particular moment in time. And we have several committees that obviously are, each one has a different focus. Um, you know, like we have a committee devoted to equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is something that a lot of people are very vocally passionate about right now. And we are looking for ways to promote that within the Institute and the profession. So if you have a passion, if you have an interest, if you have a little bit of time to give, the AIA will find a way to use it. And so when I think back to the time that I had on my hands when I wasn't married, when I didn't have children, when I wasn't a homeowner, when I wasn't licensed, and I wasn't quite as engaged or um, plowed under with my day-to-day work as I maybe am right now, I could have been devoting more of that time to some of those AIA initiatives. So my advice is don't be afraid to give it a shot. Don't be
Mm-hmm.
afraid to go to that meeting, seek out that committee, write that article, write that blog post, um, contribute. If you've got a talent, if you've got a skill, if you've got a passion, there's probably something on the AIA's website that will suit you, and they could use you. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Yeah. And like, I know I didn't join right away. I joined, I think Bob Bailey talked me into applying for the Paula Mays grant to
Mm-hmm.
help with the AREs, but you had to be
Mm-hmm.
a member. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, why am I applying for this? I'm just some kid trying to learn
Right.
architecture. I haven't done anything great yet.
Right.
And so I can definitely understand kind of almost that imposter syndrome of like, I'm just a kid. What do I know yet
Mm-hmm.
before getting involved? But baby steps. I haven't done as much as you. You've done circles around the local chapter.
Mhm.
Has there
You
been
know
a
the other
role you
thing
haven't done?
yeah, sure. There's several. But um, the other thing that I really like about it, and maybe this isn't for everybody either, but I really enjoy getting to know other architects. And I have worked for three firms in my career, but I can't I can't work for all of them, nor do I want to. But my involvement with the board has allowed me get to know some other architects around the city that work in other firms that I don't work for, more than likely will never work for. But that doesn't mean that these aren't quality individuals that I can't learn something from, get to know, and really appreciate on respect as professionals, and maybe even in some cases get to know as friends. So I've really been thankful for that opportunity as well. So, and I wouldn't have that exposure otherwise. So I'm really, really glad for that.
Yeah. And is there anything this year as president that you're really trying to hit home for the
Mm.
organization?
Well, again, it's a pretty big year, a
Mm-hmm.
celebratory year. So we've been talking a lot about looking backward as a way of looking forward. Uh, where are we headed? Regionally, like where will Pittsburgh be in the next 25, 50, 75 years? What role will architects play in that? What are how is our profession changed? How has our profession changed? How is it continuing to change? And how can we be positioned to embrace that change? So uh, I'm not sure well, if
You're still
I
learning.
yeah,
It's you're still in the
yeah.
first couple months.
Yeah. Yeah. What would I hope that I would achieve? Just raise the visibility of the chapter, raise the visibility of the profession, have a little bit of fun while I'm doing it, and just continue to help make relationships that both inside the profession and across into our allied organizations as well. So just generally help to promote what the Institute has done for the last 125 years and what they plan to continue to do.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask you at Christmas time. See how it goes.
Yeah, yeah, please do. Please do. Please do.
And then I always like wrapping up my podcast with this final question. And it's, what
Hmm.
advice do you have for young professionals just starting their career? I know we hit a lot.
Hmm. Mm. Well, uh, this is this is a very rewarding profession. It's a very rewarding, fulfilling way to spend your career, but it can also be challenging. It can also for every day that you have that builds you up and makes you feel proud of what you've done, there might be another day that does the exact opposite, beats you down and makes you wonder why you chose this. And if you're having a day like that, remember the other days. Remember the days where you felt that pride. Remember the days you felt that engagement. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions, like we talked about before, and remember that we're all human, right? So some of us might not be having, even those of us with the best of intentions might not be having the best of days either. So that doesn't mean that we're not necessarily invested in your development. We sometimes need reminders that we could be better. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to put us in our place when we are not necessarily meeting all of your needs. So, but mostly don't lose faith. Don't lose heart. You got into this for a reason. Try to remember what those reasons were, even on those days that maybe aren't the greatest of days.
Yeah. And I always tell people to just focus on the days that were very positive and energizing and see how you can do more of that. So you never know where it will take your career.
Yeah. You can't change everything, but you can change your attitude. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And if anybody has more questions for you or wants to get more involved in the AIA, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Email me, hit me up on LinkedIn, or find me at an event and pull me aside, and I'll tell you everything you need to know.
All right, I'll put a challenge to anybody in the Pittsburgh area that's listening. Go find Sean at an event this year and say hi and that he did great on a podcast. But I will leave the link to your LinkedIn account down below. So if anybody wants to reach out and see how they can get involved, they can reach out to you there.
Yep.
So thank you.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much, Sean, for taking the time again to speak with me. It was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah. Katelyn, I really appreciate the fact that you do this, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Learn some advice to take with you and see how our industry is all tied together to create the world around us. Check out the description below for any links or resources we discussed. If you liked the episode, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support finding that career path that best works for them. If you know someone that has inspired your own career that you'd like me to interview, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me via my website or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share their story or your own. Thank you again, and I cannot wait for the next career story I get to share with you next week.